All right. My name's Dennis Connors. Here in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been climbing for just under 18 years now. It'll be 18 years in May that I first went climbing. And climbing's just part of my everyday life. It's part of my existence. It's part of who I am, and it'll be part of who I am for the rest of my life. Um, Grew up climbing in the San Francisco Bay Area. Um, Started climbing at 11. Uh, got onto the junior competition circuit. So grew up with my peers of Ethan Pringle and Kevin Jorgensen and us little high school kids running around just doing competitions all over the country. Eventually, picked up sponsorships, got on the U.S. climbing team, competed in the Youth World Cup in France. Had a great time climbing for a couple years. Full on the road at 17 years old, having a great time. But something happened during that time, and it just became not super fun anymore. The climbing wasn't for me anymore at that point. I had sponsors at the time telling me, no, you have to go here, you have to go there, you have to do these climbs, we need to take photos on X climb, or we have a photographer who wants to work on X climb. So I was doing those, and I wasn't going climbing for myself. So it kind of lost its interest to me. Like, in general, I just lost interest in climbing a bit. But then in March of 2003, a drastic thing in my life happened. On March 6, 2003, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. And so that kind of changed my life forever, because I knew we'd be going to war. And sure enough, on March 17th, 2003, we went to war in Iraq. So I enlisted in March, and in September I went to boot camp. And that's when I kind of stopped climbing for a bit. Yeah. It was an interesting time. Climbing was always there, always part of it, always in my brain. Went to boot camp, graduated in December. Went to my first post in Monterey for language school, which was pretty fun. Wasn't super interested in climbing at that point. Went to the gym, Sanctuary Rock Gym in Monterey a few times, saw some old buddies. Just wasn't that interested in climbing, and was super focused on the military and my career in the military. And subsequently went on to serve 9 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. I did 3 tours of duty in Iraq, so spent about 18 or 19 months of my life in Iraq. But always kept thinking about climbing. It was always there. Buddies of mine, Brian Solano, filmmaker, sent me a couple of his films to keep me motivated out there. Guys would send me climbing magazines and Rock and Ice, and I look at my buddies from high school, and they're just climbing crazy stuff. But I couldn't get back into it. I was always just too busy. I was always deploying or going to some sort of training, or I was too heavy. And so I had a pretty long break, about 7 years. I didn't climb because of the wars and because of training, and then trying to rest between the wars. We would just go blow off steam somewhere else on the beach. Went climbing a few times during that time, but it wasn't really fun. I mean, it's fun, but it wasn't what it used to be for me. And then in 2010, a small climbing gym in Carlsbad, California, called Vital Climbing, decided to open their doors, and they invited me in to be a route setter. And after I talked to them, they invited me to be the head route setter. So that really got me back into climbing. Started climbing again, and it was like the first time I'd gone climbing. It was so much fun, and the people were so much fun, and there was no egos involved. It was a super small gym, and the guys who started it, they climbed, but they weren't like hardcore gym owners. They were just trying to create, a fun place that a community could gather around. And they were super successful. And now they have 3 gyms. Hopefully they're looking at like 10 more, because I want that community to be out there. But they got me back into climbing. And also through that gym, I met my now wife. She says she wasn't taking my class because she liked how I looked, but I believe she was taking my class because I liked how I looked. But yeah, for 2 years, I climbed in that gym and set and met climbers and went climbing and met my wife and just totally fell back in love with the sport of climbing and with bouldering, especially because it was a bouldering gym, and going back to the places I grew up at. Bishop, went up to Bishop a ton. Some of my friends who had moved to Bishop stayed at their place. They took me back out, and I just completely fell back in love with climbing. But at the time, I was basically career military at that point. I had 7 years in at that point, and I was on a path that everybody wanted to be on if you were in the military, and I could have been very successful in the military. But a couple of the climbing trips we went out on, when my wife was there, she said, Dennis, you're a much happier person when you're out here climbing. You're a much happier person when you're in this community. You're a much happier person when you're, around climbers and around climbing. And, when you're back in the Marines, you're very edgy and very pushy and very, decisive and not very relaxed. And you're just so much more fun to be around when you're climbing. And so we started thinking about, well, maybe I should get out of the military and kind of pursue climbing again and a life in climbing. And we started looking around, and my wife, lucky for me, grew up in Truckee, California, just north of Lake Tahoe. So she grew up skiing, and so she has this passion for skiing, and I started having this passion for snowboarding, and she started having a passion for climbing, and I have this huge passion for climbing. And the company she was working for, it went under, and we started looking at, should we go somewhere where we can climb and ski but have real jobs? Because let's face it, not many people get paid to go climbing. It's just how it is. And so a buddy of mine who I climbed with in San Diego, is from Salt Lake City, he said, you got to go to Salt Lake. So we came out here a couple times and kind of fell in love with the town and with the access. There's no better place that has access to climbing and skiing in the country that has jobs. There's all these little towns like Bishop, but you're going to work at the Kmart and hope to make it. But here in Salt Lake, you can actually have a job and have a career. So we started looking. She found a job as an engineer, and I found a graduate school program that fit perfectly. So we moved here. I got out of the Marines, decided to pursue the outdoors or outdoor industry or climbing or wherever that path would lead me. And went to the University of Utah for a master's degree in outdoor adventure programming. So for 2 years, I studied the reasons that people want to go outside and how we can teach them to, through the use of outdoors. We can teach conservation, you can teach leadership, you can teach business, you can teach, you can do therapy programs, everything. And it's just based on this outdoor sport that's really silly at its basic essence, if you think about it. But it's very powerful, and it can drive a huge amount of passion in people, and me especially. But as grad school was going on, I also was starting to look for jobs, and I needed a job that was flexible with grad school. And at the time, Black Diamond Equipment owned Gregory Backpacks, and I happened to know Wayne Gregory very well from my youth climbing days. And as soon as he saw that I was back in town and out of the military, he wanted me, in the building. It didn't matter in what capacity, he just wanted me there. And so I applied for a job in the Black Diamond retail store because it was flexible with school. And I put Wayne Gregory as a reference on my application. And the manager, Pete, thought I was joking. And so he walked over to Wayne, asked Wayne, and Wayne said, hire him immediately. So I got a call a couple days later, and I got a job at Black Diamond. So I worked in the retail store for a year, and then a position came open in Black Diamond for the international accounts manager position, running internal sales for all the international distributors that Black Diamond has. And I thought that was really awesome, and I applied, and luckily with my immense international background from the military, and a background in sales from school, and then a background in outdoor adventure programs and why people want to go outside and do these sports, got hired into that position. So really, the passion of climbing for me has, gone outside of just the climbing. It's kind of shaped my whole life. I've shaped my career around climbing. I've shaped where I live around climbing. I've shaped who I've married around climbing. And really, that passion inside every person is there. You just got to find your specific passion. Mine was climbing. And, I've a daughter now, 5-month-old daughter. So I'm hoping to pass that passion for something. It doesn't matter what it is. She's already been on ski trips to Whistler. She's been ski trips to Lake Tahoe. She's been all over these mountains. We're going to southern Utah this weekend. So she's 5 months old. So just trying to, continue my passion for climbing, climb as hard as I can, push my limits, both, personally, professionally. And I think climbing can teach you how to do all of that. You just have to listen to the climbing more than just go for a grade or go for something, but listen to everything that climbing has to teach you. So that's my story.